Welcome back, Warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here tonight on another live stream. I apologize for not doing it yesterday, but I am back here tonight, and I generally do my live streams Mondays through Thursdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on YouTube. Now, I am doing things a little bit differently this time. I have guests that's going to join me. Right now, I have one guest. He's going to join me, and his name is Derek. Um, SOB. Are you serious? Right here on YouTube. How are you, Derek?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. And I also have MJ with WTF for real. Hello, MJ.
Hey, how you doing, Linda B?
I'm doing great, doing great. I'm so glad you guys joined me. So, you know that we're reviewing this documentary called Race Wars, executive produced by Charlie Kirk. And we have some of our favorites in here: Larry Elder, Ben Carson, Vince Ellison, and some others with MAGA Hulk. He's in here. And so what I always do generally is I do say a prayer, before I get started, a very brief prayer. They love me for doing that. So, dear God, in Jesus' name, we thank you so much for another opportunity to speak to your people, Father, and we pray that your perfect will is done and that we continue to do what you would have us to do. And we thank you for protecting our nation. In Jesus' name, amen. All
Amen.
right. All right. So I'm going to just bring up some comments because I like to say hey to folks that join in the chat. We've got Blurt, who is a new member. Thank you so much. And we've got Michael Rodriguez, who was always here, one of the first people here. And he likes to remind everybody, don't forget to like the video, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. June Stanley, hello. Hey, Fed Up Patriot. All right, they're always so happy to join. Iron Ear, hello, hello, hello. And there's my husband, Calvin Bentley, too. Hello, honey. All right, let's see who else we got. Oh, we've got Natural Sis 64. Hello, thank you all for joining me. You guys mean so much to me. I really appreciate your support. My girls H in the house. Hey, Karen and Happy Mac. Hello, hello, hello. Who else do we have? I like to get the first few people. MAGA Tamara. Hello there, MAGA Tamara girl. Thank you so much. You're beautiful too. And Fed Up Patriot, you guys are so amazing. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to be reacting together. And guys, I want you to follow Derek on SOB. Are you serious? And I want you to follow MJ at WTF for real. They're really wonderful. You need to check them out. And we're going to go ahead and get started with Race Wars. All right. Now I'm going to pause intermittently for copyright reasons. You all understand that. All right. Here we go.
Absolutely.
We do. On one side, a push for diversity through equity, where the pursuit of justice has morphed into a demand for division, fragmenting our society under the guise of fairness. On the other, a vision of unity through equality, striving to bring people together, regardless of their differences, under a single standard of humanity. These clashing ideologies have turned our streets into battlegrounds and our communities into war zones. This is the race war.
you've been put at the starting point of this race, right?
Okay.
And a white man breaks your leg. He breaks your leg, and now he says the Chinese man leg is good, the white man leg is good. Now you got to run this race. Now you adapt to being handicapped.
Okay.
Right? No matter how much peaceful songs you want to read, how much Bibles you want to open up, the white man ain't gonna love you. He ain't gonna love the religion. He gonna lie. He gonna kill. He gonna steal. He's not to be trusted. You can be in a kumbaya phase what you want, and it sounds like that's what you want. That's okay, right? You're delusional. We didn't slavery.
Not necessarily. No, not at all. Not at all. I look at things for what they are. I don't judge people based on the color of their skin. I judge them on the content of the character and their merit.
You can't erase 400 years. You can't.
No one's trying to erase 400 years. Your brain is not here. Your brain's not here. Your brain's up here. So think with your brain instead of your skin color. When you think by.
All right, I'm gonna pause right there to get some comments right now from you guys. You see these two different ideologies, right? You see these two. They got varying differences, ways of thinking. I think like MAGA Hulk, and I know those of you on my panel do sometimes want a liberal on here, but Derek said he can't even pretend to be a liberal, so I can't. I'm gonna go with you, MJ. What you say? What do you think about what's been said so far?
I mean, it's wild because, I think I can remember at one point in my life when I would have agreed or even been on the side of the young brother in the video, where to me it was such a, I don't feel like that during that time in my life I really gained any ground with being successful at a lot of different things. From a relationship perspective and
Right.
not even like a romantic relationship perspective, just a relationship in general.
Right.
And during that time, I think I was a lot more angry, but that's an ideology that I feel like it's not new. But it's like what I consider like slave mentality or victim mentality, and making it's an excuse driven ideology,
Right. Exactly.
And for me, I used to be very liberal once upon a time, and so I can certainly relate to it. But yeah, it's very destructive and unproductive to me.
Absolutely. And Derek, what's your take on what you've seen so far?
My mind starts racing because you look at that intro and you realize that what's about to unfold in front of you is a media production. And I remember from elementary school how I've always been told that the winners in life are the ones that create the narrative of history, and that's what's in the history books. Right. And as I'm watching this, and as social media and all these other platforms, all the other narratives are able to come together, and it's not always set in stone by the people that won or the groups that won or what they want you to know. And I like the fact that they're able to sit there or stand there next to each other on the corner and talk and not let the emotions get to them. That's one of the biggest things I found is the hardest. I mean, there's a lot of hard things as a parent, but the one thing that I always want my kids to know is you are light years ahead of anybody that you encounter in life if you can stop and put yourself in their shoes, or at least their point of view. There's things that I'll never understand, the shoes or the path that someone's walked through in their life, but I can listen, and I can't just wait to interject. I can actually listen and digest what they're saying. And I think that there's a big lacking for that in the world today. And I love the fact that I saw in the chat, they call him MAGA Hulk. I love that he's able to sit there and digest and listen and respectfully say, no, I don't agree with that. It doesn't turn into emotions. It doesn't turn into a fireworks display because they disagree on two different subjects. And I love the tone that's being started.
I will say this now. The one that's liberal, he got all up in his feelings. I'm just cutting that part out. He said something I don't allow on my channel. So I had to go, and while y'all were talking, I had to go in here and cue it up and skip that little part because I don't let that word go. I'm just saying, liberal people tend to be, in my opinion, more like you said, you were angrier, MJ. You said you were angrier.
More aggressive.
And he got aggressive. MAGA Hulk didn't. And MAGA Hulk I'm glad MAGA Hug did not get aggressive because he's speaking. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in,
Hmm.
and probably even harder to get out of that way of thinking,
Yeah,
But there
yeah.
was several catalysts in my life that led me off what I consider to be the Democratic plantation,
Absolutely.
which you understand what I mean by that, but
Hmm.
it's hard to really see the
Hmm.
forest from the trees when that's all you see and all you hear.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the experience for me was overwhelming.
Yeah,
But I'm a completely different person, I feel like, than I was back then.
we all are. I am too. So I'm going to get back to it, and I've got it queued up, and we're just going to continue, and we're going to do commentary throughout. All right.
As a black man in America, I was taught that I am the victim. I am the oppressed one. I was taught that white people ultimately hate me based on the color of my skin. They want to keep us in chains. They want to keep their knee on our neck. This is their whole goal. This is their whole aim. This is what they promise to the black community. I'm told that if I don't promote hip hop culture, then I'm not black. I'm told if I say anything negative about the civil rights movement or MLK, then I'm not black. I'm told if I don't support reparations for slavery, then I'm not black. I'm told if I don't support BLM, I'm not black.
Oh, wow. Mm. And this is right here, guys. This is a familiar saying right
Black
here.
in the eyes of the left, then my black card is revoked.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Now, I will say there was a point in time in my life where I did believe this, that I had to embody these different types of traits to indeed be black. I followed the culture down this rabbit hole of degradation. The black community has been lied to, manipulated, hoodwinked into believing in these lies. So I want to talk to some of the most manipulated people in the game.
Because there was a time that you were sitting at home in this past year and you were like, fuck the police.
I don't like his language, guys, so I'm going to just skip a little bit. I'm just sorry. It's real bad. Just a little skip. Let me just skip a little bit. Yeah, it's going to be a little salty. I can't get rid of all the language.
Everywhere. And
Okay, let me just know it's supposed to go to 9. Sorry about that.
I'll be the villain.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
All right, now this is Hawk. Yeah, this guy, he was with, the whole Jordan Neely thing. Remember that?
Mhm.
With the guy on the subway train, and his name is Hawk Newsom, Walter Hawk Newsom. He's of the BLM chapter in Greater New
Yep.
York. And
Right.
you remember that. And so him and
Mhm.
his sister founded this, and they were just all in the streets. And then, of course, we know what happened. Jordan Neely, he didn't, he's gone from this earth. And I'm sorry, what's the young man's, the guy that choked him? I forgot his name. Daniel Penny. Daniel Penny. That's
Daniel
what it
Penny.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I was like,
lost
wait a
his
minute,
name too.
I lost it. I was like, where is it? But
Yeah.
anyway, Derek, what do you feel so far about anything that you noticed in here?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird because I heard growing up that, I mean, I played a lot of sports, and I was one of the only white guys on the team. And I heard all the time that I just had token black friends just because I wanted to say that I have a friend that's black.
Oh,
And so it was almost like it was, I don't say traumatic, but it was one of those things I didn't understand. And so I've learned that there's beauty in diversity, there's beauty in color. And when I was young, I'd say I don't see color, but that's almost a disrespect to my colored friends. It's like I do, but I also learned to love culture and everything that comes around it. And I mean, I would say that, or I'd venture to say that a shining example is that, I mean, MJ, we've known each other, what, 6 months?
Yeah.
I mean,
About
that's
that.
my brother right there. I mean, we at least chat once, twice a day, even if it's just a message that the other one may not see. I mean, it's just like,
oh, I didn't know y'all got a bromance.
no, but like,
I'm just messing.
it's
I'm just
we
messing.
like totally fuel each other. Like we got that mindset, we got that drive, and not a lot of people have that. And so it's like, hey, what are you doing today? I did this. Can you beat that? It's like we're
Oh,
bouncing
okay.
things off each other, and we make each other better. And I mean, people don't see that; they see the surface, and
Right.
deeper within, there's way much more to a person and to each person's story than what you see on the surface. And it's sad if you limit yourself to what your eyes can see and you don't truly get to know somebody.
I agree. What do you say, MJ?
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, Derek is, you know, I consider him a brother. You know, and it's crazy. You know, sometimes you have these friendships that you stumble across, and it's just a natural fit. And you know, it's been a beautiful thing. You know, I go back to growing up. I was raised in, you know, very rural Virginia. You know, and back in the day, you know, there was a lot of what you could probably consider racism all over the place, and being raised up, you know, but I remember having a lot of white friends, you know.
Right.
I was an athlete, you know, my brother and I, and, you know, it was a 50-50 split in our school in terms of the racial divide. It was, you know, probably about 50-50 with a few sprinkles here and there of, you know, other ethnicities. But, you know, we grew up, you know, loving on everybody, even though we
I did
still
too.
was raised with the mentality that, you know, you don't trust the white man, you know, the white man is bad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was raised up
Yeah,
hearing that from my grandparents.
yeah,
I mean, of course, they grew up in like they were born in like my grandfather was born in 1916, my grandmother was born in 1920, and I was like, wow. And they just, but I didn't cling to it. I just by the grace of God, I just didn't gravitate towards those feelings at
right.
all. I was like, no, that was how it was back in y'all's day. We good over here. But I want to get back to it, and we'll, like I said, be stopping intermittently. So let's get back to it. All right, great discussion.
I marker. Get settled. All cams are speeding. So Hawk, I want to start with you. In your opinion, you know, and you can obviously elaborate on it further because I think we've touched on some of this before in conversation as well, but why did Black Lives Matter have to exist?
Black Lives Matter had to exist because there were wrongs that occurred hundreds of years ago that were never righted. Black Lives Matter existed because police brutality was ever present. And it's important to know that over 60% of police officers who were questioned in a study said that these were race-based incidences, right? Black Lives Matter existed because people were fed up. They thought the end was Rodney King. They thought the end was Abner Louima. They thought the end had come and gone, but apparently it didn't. So there was a need for a movement, just like any other great movement in American history.
There's injustices in communities that people of all backgrounds are fed up with. There's organizers and people, community members that believe there's simple, tangible things that we can do to right some of the wrongs that are oppressing people in many communities across this country to this day.
You know, as I was told as a young kid, you're gonna have to work twice as hard to make it in America. You're gonna, you know, the white man's gonna hold you down and hold you back. And I grew up a very racially bitter kid. I look at things specifically through the lens of race, and it skewed my whole mindset. So when it comes to data points, when it comes to different ideologies and mentalities, I attributed it all to race. If you look for a problem, you will find one.
The smartest black people, college educated, graduate degrees, those are the people who recognize racism at the highest rate. As a man who fights for black people across this country, I will tell you that not enough black people care about race. Because if we cared enough about race, we would flip this country upside down.
I would love to not have to look at things black and white and through a race thing, but once you've been stereotyped and discriminated enough, you can't help but to be mindful of that. How many times have you been in a store and been followed because you have a hoodie on and natural black hair and they think you're gonna steal? How many times have you been pulled over because you're in the wrong neighborhood, which is your neighborhood, but you have dreadlocks or a certain kind of hat on?
I think we need to really look at all these things before we just automatically go to racism. There are no laws on the books that hold black people back. We have the same opportunities as anyone else. And if systemic racism is indeed alive and well, why is it that people from the West Indies, Jamaica, Barbados, whatever have you, they tend to do better than Americans, black Americans born and raised here in America?
You said, look at my brothers from Jamaica and Barbados and Africa. What you're forgetting is those people had to be self-starters to get here. Those people had to know how to pull resources together. Those people had to know how to figure out the paperwork, figure out the system to make it work in their benefit so they could get to America.
All right, we got to talk about this because now we done got into, we gonna find a problem no matter what, to make an excuse no matter what. Can't really answer the question why black people, clearly black, that come from other places are able to succeed. And I noticed that a long time ago, particularly with Africans, they're always doctors and lawyers. I mean, they really are. So, I mean, that's just, I mean, what do you guys just jump in? I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, on the point of like, African immigrants doing better. I mean, hell, excuse my language, Linda B. My bad. I thought I was on my channel for a second, but, but quite
you can
honestly,
mute him
like,
anytime he gets out of hand.
I know, right? I'm gonna pull you off. I'm just playing.
It's crazy because I've seen that. I've seen it. I lived in Connecticut. I was up north for a long time, and I literally seen Haitian immigrants move there, and outwork everybody around them. The mindset was different. They were hungry, and it's a shame because we're here. We're born here. With the same opportunities. As a matter of fact, we have even more opportunities. It's just a mindset, and it's the drive. And the thing is, they don't make the same excuses we make because they don't
exactly.
They the thing is, we're still sitting back on things that happened.
A long time ago.
long time ago.
Past. Yeah. And I think there were some things done in this country in the 60s the 60s with the welfare and the government dependency and
for sure.
certain governmental things were poured into black neighborhoods, like the drugs and the crime and the things. And we ultimately have to take responsibility for our own actions. But there were some things that were put in place to make it harder, particularly when you talk about breaking up the home. And it brings me back to Black Wall Street. If you guys have heard of Black Wall Street, that was
Absolutely.
in the early 1900s. That was after slavery, but before civil rights with the government dependency and handouts. And we had that work mindset. We were doing better, than a lot of other groups. We were just cutting our poverty rate. We had 2-parent homes. We walked out looking respectful and dressed up and good manners. God was at the center instead of government.
Right.
So what do you
Well,
say, Derek?
You
I'm
know
sorry, I
how
didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
nah.
I didn't mean
three
to
of
cut you.
us. Now go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
MJ.
I was gonna just chime in with the Black Wall Street statement that you made. I mean, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the reality is a lot of people haven't even heard of that before,
Mm-hmm.
which is shocking to me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I used to have colleagues that would ask me about it randomly because they had stumbled across the information, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
it was just striking. But to that point, you know, it with Black Wall Street, I mean, we circulated our money within our community. Like the issue is, you know, as in the black community in and of itself is just not unified.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why you see, you know, folks migrating here and having success because they band together.
Right.
You know, as a matter of fact, the Haitian family I was talking about, and I've seen Jamaican families do it, I've seen Indian families do it, I've seen just about everybody do it. They all pour into each other and build each other up, and then they
Mm-hmm.
start to spread out, which is why you see them being so successful. You know, I can't tell you how many dollar stores saw pop up in the city I was living in, and they were all a bunch of Indians or Haitian folks that pulled their money together and band together, and they all worked there and they did their thing, and then next thing you know, there's 10 other stores popping up. They're just unified. And you know, it's, you know, the minute we can get out of this mindset and stop the crabs in the barrel mentality, which is a, you know, just I have a disdain for, and it holds us back. So, you know, but I'll let Derek chime in. Go ahead,
Come on,
Derek.
chime in, Derek.
Well, you might not want me to because you know how sometimes I get going on these stories. So I'm about to get going on one. I've been a business coach for almost a decade now. And one of the first things I want to do when I sit down with anybody new is, what is your why? What's going to
Mm-hmm.
fuel you? What's going to drive you? And we could sit back and rewatch that whole segment we just watched. And the biggest thing that stuck out to me was he was almost making excuses or complaining because people that came over to this country had that dog in them. That's
Mm-hmm.
because we get too complacent and too lazy, and you don't even know what your why is. My grandfather immigrated to this country when my dad was 4 years old from Holland, and in 1980, the dollar was worth $1 in 1980 is worth the same as $3.79 today. That's almost a 4-to-1 ratio. When he passed away from cancer in mid 1990s, he had $1 million in the bank after he sold his farm. $1 million. That sounds like a lot of money, but today, that's like us getting $250,000 because the value of the dollar was 4 times more than it is today.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Yeah.
it was the American dream he was chasing, and we just get
Mm-hmm.
so complacent, and we go through the how many Americans, I'd venture to say over 90% of it or even more, go punch in a clock, go to work, come home, grab a beer out of the fridge, go sit down and watch whatever's on TV, worry about their biggest decision is what they're having for dinner. And that's their day. You were not put on this world to live that kind of a life. I don't care who you are or what you believe in.
Absolutely.
That is not why you were put on this earth. And if you
That's
don't
right.
find your why and you don't put that energy into it, that's why and I got in trouble with my ex-wife because this is one of our biggest fights. You are the sum of all the decisions you've made. That's where you are today. So if you're going to complain about something, look in the mirror because your decisions are what got you there. You can't blame your neighbor. You can only blame the person you can't blame your spouse. It's all up to you. And if you're not happy with your life, do something to change it, but don't fall back into your
Yes,
same old habits.
exactly. Don't blame other people. Absolutely. We're going
Right.
to get back to it. Get back to it. I got to stop and read this right here. Color, Communism, and Common Sense. It literally says a large number of Negro ministers are all for the communists. Some are prominent and influential, others are run of the mill. They, in common, believe that beating the racial drums is a shortcut to prominence, money, and the realization of personal ambitions, even if the Negro masses are left prostrate and bleeding, expendables in the mad scramble for power. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Did you guys see that? Did I have that up?
Mm-mm.
I didn't have it up the whole time. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's all good.
I thought I had that up. But anyway, I just realized when I went back to the screen, I didn't have it up. But anyway, you heard it, right? You heard it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what do you think about that? Because now you're looking at it on the screen. What I just read just now is exactly what I'm looking at a lot of ministers today when I look at that. And I remember what the iron triangle of the black Democrat politician, the minister, and the civil rights worker. Some of that just reminded me. And a lot of the like MAGA hoax said a lot of the people that those intellectuals have communist indoctrination. I'll let one of you jump in.
I most of the things on my channel are music reactions, and I got into the wormhole that is Nightwish, and so they're from Finland, a rock band, and I listen to Christian music and country music, and that's about all I've listened to my whole life. So, but they got into atheism and all kinds of stuff, and it took me a while to respond to some of the comments because I had to pray about it and think about it, but like. So because hundreds of years have passed, thousands of years have passed, people don't realize Christianity is man-made. And there's going to be bad ministers, there's going to be bad messages, there's going to be bad people. And as Christianity starts to deviate from the Bible and gets mistranslated and explained to family members, it's going to cause trauma to people. And there are ministers that are going to be giving bad words and bad lead people in the wrong direction that isn't God-based. And I don't know that they're doing it intentionally, but it's very much true. And that's why it's important. I always go back down to there's a reason that God has a direct link between you and him and not through somebody else. Because if you're relying
Yeah.
upon someone else for salvation, then you got a problem already.
You do. And I just want to point out that some people said that they could not hear that last little bit. Basically, they were in that same room sitting there talking about how is it that people that came from overseas that are black were able to succeed. And then Hawk Newsom, who is a BLM out of Greater New York, said indoctrination when black people are told all time, every day, that they're not going to be anything, the poor performing public schools. And then this man who is the author of Color, Communism, and Common Sense said what I just stated right here, that a large number of ministers agree, the Negro ministers agree with the communist ideology, and they know that they're hurting their people, but the people don't matter because they're expendable in their search for money and prominence. And that is what you all did not hear. I just wanted to make sure that that was out there. I'm going to leave the link to the full documentary in the description box so you guys can check it out. But MJ, I wanted to get a short word from you before we go back.
Yeah, quite honestly, I'm not surprised by reading it. And just really quick, I was a practicing Christian for the better part of 15 years solid. And I remember a time when this was unheard of. And so, quite frankly, that makes it very difficult to go back and to, really delve in because, it's, where are the real people at?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And, people get caught up in the person and put folks on pedestals and, the people perish. People
we have
perish.
to know the word of God for ourselves too, because we can't just be looking at other people to know everything. But I'm going to go ahead and get back into this right here and play it. Here we go.
Infiltrate the black community specifically. Usually these revolutions that happen all around the world, they're due to class struggle, right? The Algerian Revolution with Mandela, the Cuban Revolution with Castro, the Soviet Revolution with Lenin and Stalin. When it comes to the Chinese Revolution with Mao, it was all about class struggle because all the cultures were homogenous. Here in America, the cultures are not homogenous, so they know how to separate us through the idea of race. That's our biggest divide, and they want to hammer on that wedge. And whenever I see people promoting this idea that there's this color and that color and we're going against each other, that is Marxism 101. It is all about agitation. And that's what I see constantly, and that's what I saw with Black Lives Matter. I saw agitation of the United States of America. This is what I saw during the Civil Rights Movement. Agitation. This is what I constantly see when it comes to the pro-Palestine movements. This is what I see when it comes to Antifa. It's all about agitation. You want people in this type of fight or flight mode. You want people with this mentality of, I don't like my situation and circumstance. I want to be a revolutionary. And then they upend America just like they did with any other country.
Global leaders, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they call themselves self-trained Marxists?
Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
Yes, they did. But here's the thing, right? America's gonna throw these labels on black leaders for people to bite on and use it to exile them. Don't listen to him. He's a communist, like Dr. King. You ask the average black person in the hood who are against racism about Marxism, and they look at you like you got two heads. Like nobody, these are not the concerns of black people. Like what you have to understand is, I am not an activist. Like what you really, really have to understand is, you've been victimized. They threw this Marxism thing at you and you ran with it. Brother, back up off that. Because this is not what we're talking about with our children. This is not what we're teaching them. When you talk about, let's just say reparations, without going into reparations, you are talking about black nationalists. You're talking about African descendants of slaves who are saying, I'm an American. These are black leaders who have rallies across this country who are saying, I'm an American, I'm owed a check. They're not.
Wow. People want to be owed a check. Let me get to this other part here. Get past this. Here we go. All right.
My city at that time, it was just a traumatic experience, and seeing all these people being pushed out down the street by tear gas. The police had orders to evacuate everyone from this park that we are standing in right now to Sheridan Road, which is directly in front of us.
Fire trucks from everywhere, different districts, from Waukegan, everywhere, Racine.
It was opportunists, people that don't live in Kenosha, they aren't from here, they're not from around here. They saw an opportunity because of a terrible situation and they took advantage of it. I feel like those are the people that were destroying things, looting things, burning things. The people that live in Kenosha and that are from here, they weren't doing that because this is their home. I mean, this is where I grew up.
A lot of people did come from out of state, and when they got off their buses, they had backpacks, lighter fluid on one side, baseball bat on the other. This is the location where, at the time, it was filled with a whole bunch of used cars that they were selling, and at night, they were all torched. So when the mainstream media came to Kenosha, they only set up on the corner here. Kitty corner from here, this corner, and each corner. They never went down, they never followed anything else. They followed the destruction that was happening right here. And that was it. That was the focal point because that was the political motive. I believe they were trying to spin race. It's an easy tool to divide people.
Come on.
An easy tool to divide people. He says, I believe they were trying to just spin race because it is an easy tool to divide people. And I'm not going to play the rest of it. I'm going to leave the link in the description because we have a lot of commentary. So either one of you want to chime in there? Because what he said was, back in the BLM days, people would come in with lighter fluid on one side, a bat in the other hand, on buses. Okay. Now we remember what just happened in LA recently. You know, we remember with the Tesla dealerships. Okay. Chaos, agitation, that's Marxism. And we saw it with BLM, we saw it with the LA Rise, we saw it with the Tesla and the Doge thing, right? So this is like a common playbook. They're doing the same thing over, and they're being provided these things. I won't get too deep into that, but somebody with some big pockets is providing the materials, paying people every day. You know, you get X amount of dollars to do this right here. So either one of you can chime in.
Man, it's the oldest trick in the book. That's the
Mm-hmm.
oldest play. That's play number one. We're gonna just use it and use it and use it and spin it and just color it a different color the next time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's you know, I say it all the time. It's the thing that gets tossed out first. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the minute anything happens, the first question someone asks, was it white or black? Think about it.
I know.
Anytime something crazy happens, were they white or black? That's the first thing people want to know, as if that makes any relevance. Like, first of all, if it was something that was egregious, you know, it doesn't matter what color they are, they you know, the person is, you know, at the end of the day. But they make it the first trick in the play. I mean, that goes back to the whole Carmelo Anthony thing. You know, and I think we had a conversation about that, Linda B. You know, and even my thoughts on that was, if the two kids was, you know, if the kids were both one particular race, would anybody even have a conversation about it? Probably not.
Not because, you know, you have, I hate to say it, but black on black crime is very high. Like 90 to 95% of a young man, that's a black young man, more than likely his life was taken by another black male. And I live in the good part of the town that I live in, but the town that I live in is known for crime, but I'm not in the crime-ridden area, and it's almost always black on black, and nobody says anything. These get no national attention ever.
Think about it, Linda B. Like, black people kill black people, white people kill white people, and
Yeah,
nobody
exactly.
talks about. No one
Nobody
talks about
talks
those.
about it.
Nobody
Mm-mm.
talks about it. But let it be the opposite. You know, on either side, everybody's talking about it. You know, I don't think I've ever seen anything in the news that said, "Hey, man, this Chinese guy killed this black man. Let's talk about it." No, you don't even hear about it. It's either black or white. Period.
Exactly.
You know, and I saw
exactly.
someone in your comments talking about race fatigue. I'm exhausted. You know, I'm
I
so
know,
sick of
right?
it.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. You can chime in, Derek.
No, I mean, he's hitting it right on the head. We were seeing eye to eye. It all comes down to what they throw right in front of you, and it's not a news story if it's the same race on the same race. It's just not, and
Hmm.
people don't care. But you get the emotions up, and you can pit two people against each other,
Hmm.
and that's where the news is. That's where the clicks are. That's what people want to see.
And that's unfortunate. And BLM did make off with a lot of money. My girls H says BLM made off with all that money and didn't give a rat's A squared. That's my name for A squared. So somebody got on to me for saying the word one time. They said, "You a Christian. You ain't supposed to talk like that." I said,
It's in the Bible.
it's an animal to me."
I'm playing.
I
About
was
what happened. It's about
just
what
going to tell
happened
that
after the
story.
wind blew over and the dust settled. And BLM did make out with a lot of money, and they did not
Oh
help
yeah.
any of those communities. They made off with, I forgot how much money. It was hundreds of millions. And they bought all those mansions. And so they said BLM should stand for by large mansions, because that's exactly what they did. And since they care so much about black people, they didn't even move into a black neighborhood.
I can't tell you how many BLM, you know, like the little mask when we used to have wear masks back then.
Hmm.
Right around that time. And I
Hmm.
remember my daughter came home with this BLM mask, like, "Here, Dad, take it." And I
Hmm.
was like, "Okay." And it was just nonsense. It was ridiculous. They made a lot of money, and
Yeah, it
people
was about
capitalized
hate.
off of that.
They did. They capitalized off of
Organized chaos.
organized chaos. And honestly, you know, I got to say this. You know, you brought it up with Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf situation. Um,
Hmm.
that was a grift, in my opinion. That was another one of
Oh,
those
big time.
grifts with Al Sharpton 2.0 up at the helm, that Dominique Alexander, and he calls himself a minister, just like Al Sharpton,
Wow.
Reverend Al Sharpton. And he had the press out back in the day, kind of still does, but he's older and his hair is thinner. And this younger guy is like, you go back and look at those mug shots of Dominique Alexander. I don't know if you seen them, but he had the pressed out
Mhm.
hair too. He has a criminal history, and he's called minister. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. You got Jesse
Yeah.
Jackson, Al Sharpton, Dominique Alexander. What other preacher? that don't have a congregation.
But you know, but they skew it for people. You know, and no, that's why you know, and you know, and even in like I said earlier when you were brought up the thing about the ministers, like even in the church, you know, it just, things like this, it just confuses people. You know, and that's you know that you know in a place where we should be most unified, you know, we even divided there.
Exactly. And Satan, you know, I'm Christian too, so I do put my Christianity into my politics. Satan's MO is divide and conquer. I
Thank
mean,
you.
divide people up. And the Marxist thing is, and later in this particular documentary, they said that Karl Marx said that his whole thing was to dethrone God. Atheism and communism are like, they work hand in hand. And so it's like, oh, I see that coming more from one side of the political aisle than the other, like way more from one side. It's like they're always calling somebody a racist if you don't agree with them. They're always saying that. And then, you know, you got this socialist that wants to be mayor in New York City. I'm just like, you guys are gonna screw up so bad if you get that man as your mayor. And he is unapologetic about it. So, I mean, we see this movement towards there's part of our government that wants that, that's trying to move towards that. And the other part is like, no, we want capitalism, we want freedom, religious freedom, freedom of speech. You raise your children how you see fit, you know. And I'm more in line with capitalism and freedom of speech and right to bear arms and,
100%.
you know, you know, all those things. I'm not for that other side because I see they get angry. Even when people, I put in, I said in my videos, one of my videos talking about Carmelo, I said, liberals tend to be, I just talk, honey, I just say whatever. I said, liberals, y'all tend to be, y'all get angry, y'all all up in your feelings, you always get mad, you emotional. And somebody posted, you conservatives, and it put CON in uppercase, conservatives. Y'all the ones that's emotional, and then, and they just really proved my point with that comment,
Yeah.
with the way it sounded, you know. And I said, well, you know, we can always agree to disagree, and that was
Yeah,
it.
but that's the problem. Liberals usually you can't agree to disagree with liberals most times.
You just can't. You
It's a
gotta agree
one-sided,
with
yeah, it's a
them,
one-sided conversation, right? If you disagree, it's a wrap.
But take a look at what's going on in the world right now, and then think about biblically. Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed because of sinful nature, and what are we living in now? God flooded the world, and you know all these things. It got that bad, and we're looking and living in a sinful world right now, and it's just like, man, how bad? How much worse was it for those just those two examples?
Wow, wow. Well, I guess I'm going to wrap this up, and I like to give the floor to either one of you to give, you know, some final comments.
Yeah, take it away, Derek.
Oh, I was waiting for you. I just spoke.
Y'all so cordial. They so polite. They got good manners.
Well, you know, that's, you know, we're not liberal. Now, if this was a liberal show, it would be completely different. It would be arguments and people fussing and fighting. No, but this was really informative. I hadn't had an opportunity to watch, and I think that you said that this was a series, so I'm definitely gonna
4 parts. It's 3 other parts.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back and watch this in its entirety, all 4 parts. And if you have another follow-up conversation on it, I'll be more versed in that.
I plan on doing it the rest of this week, and then Monday will be the last one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. But it's super informative from the perspective that, you know, it definitely gave me some insight that I didn't. Now, I knew that it was organized chaos and organized, but I did not realize that they were actually proudly, it seems like, being taught Marxism and teaching it. And, you know, and the first thing they go to is our young people. You know what I'm saying? They go straight to our youth.
Indoctrinated.
Exactly. Yep. You know, and that's why, you know, you know, my 3 daughters, they're adults now. And man, I taught them to be free thinkers, to think for themselves. You know, they don't blindly follow anything.
Are they conservative like you in your vote and their voting?
You know, it's funny that you ask. They are.
Okay.
And primarily because they follow my lead, but they don't blindly follow my lead.
Okay.
I explain things to them and I point them into the direction of, I teach them what I can, what I know, and then they go and do the homework for themselves. And then they usually hit me back. I'm like, Dad, I had no idea.
Exactly. I'm
And
I'm
so,
so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, they're part of the 8% instead of the 92. Thank you, Lord.
oh
Oh,
yeah, no, they're definitely not, they're definitely not on the left. So I appreciate that.
great. All right, what you got to say, Derek?
Man, it's one of those things, like, just listen to what MJ said. My oldest is 21, got married about just over a year ago. June 1st was her wedding, so 13 months today. And when she went to college, she graduated in 3 years. I remember sitting her down and saying, "You're about to go into the den because it's super liberal." But that doesn't mean you can't be. You can be respectful, and if you hear something that might have some truth, research it, because not both sides are like, there's extremes on both ends, and you got to be
Yeah.
able to know what you got to be standing on 2 feet instead of just leaning against the wall that you think is the right one you're leaning on. And she does that, and I love that about my kids, is that um you always, or at least I, prayed for spouses decade before they met, and you
Oh,
worry
wow.
about things, and you think, when they're on their own 2 feet and I can no longer guide them, what are they going to be? And you got to give that to God, because you'll be sitting there worried for a long time. But then after I've got two, 10 and 11 now, and so seeing what happened with the first one, it's a lot easier to rely on God, because I could have messed up a whole lot more, and He protected her. But that it all comes back down to a lot in the comments about chaos. And I
Hmm.
used to think that sex, drugs, and rock and roll were the three things that Satan was good at. But if you look at marketing, he flourishes off of hate. He flourishes off all emotions and
Hmm.
fear. And then you look at what America's done over the past several decades, and taking the man out of the house. And
Hmm.
if you don't have two parents, God didn't make a woman to be the head of the house and the wife. I mean, God was very intentional in
Hmm.
everything He did, and in the end, He stood back and said it was good. It took us to mess it all up, and
Exactly. Oh,
and that's why we have this huge mess, is because we've messed it. We're a product, again, of our own decisions, and we've messed this all up. And only through His grace are we going to get to see Him again soon, hopefully really soon.
well, I know, right? Lord, when you're coming, because these folks are cut the food. And we better be glad God is the one God, because I would have zapped y'all behind them bad ones a long time ago. Y'all acting too ugly down here. But I'm just saying, but join, not right now, but in your prayer, in your private time. This is to you, Derek, and you, MJ, and everyone listening. Just pray for, I've been praying for international salvation. I believe there's going to be an outpouring of the Holy Spirit before it really gets ugly. So, I mean, I just believe that we can pray for that, because I think that's, a good thing to pray for. God is getting His army ready. Devil got his army out here. So it's a spiritual battle. The way I look at it, it's definitely a spiritual battle.
Linda,
Yeah.
Linda B, I typically try not to get into comments, but I got it. I got in the comments a little bit. And MAGA Tamara, I just want to let you know, I saw your comment about your daughter's husband not letting you see your daughter. And when I went through my divorce, my ex-wife tried to keep my daughter from me. And I know it's totally different because she's married and this was my daughter.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the hardest thing you can do is give it to God. And it took 3 years before God's plans were laid before me. And my daughter ended up with full custody in third grade. She came and lived with me until she got married. And
Wow.
so I'm not saying that's going to happen for you and your daughter. I don't know, but I can guarantee you that I will be praying for you and your family tonight. And God's plan doesn't always show itself, but His plan is perfect. And just know that you've got my prayers tonight. That's all that I can offer you, but you got it.
Absolutely, Mega Tamara, and everybody watching. Thank you so much for catching that, Derek. That means a lot. And yes, God bless you, Mega Tamara. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and end it here. I really appreciate you all joining me tonight. We're going to be here tomorrow at 9:30. We're going to look at episode 2 All right. I'm going to put the full links in the description so you guys can check it out on your own free time. But again, I want you guys to follow them on YouTube. We have Derek with SOB, Are You Serious? And MJ with WTF for Real. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. And you guys don't forget to smash that like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit all notifications. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as I always say, march on, warriors. Good night, everybody.